Should we discuss that incident? Should we discuss what happened there? Because honestly, I think everyone was fuming at Bottas, but a lot of people were also like, do you know what? I understand why he's just done what he's just done. Because honestly, it was like Bottas was like, do you know what? I can see you there, Verstappen. Take the position. Go. I think since Spa,
What happened?
like, no
Trauma.
rain. Yeah, everyone was traumatized from the rain in Spa. And now every time there's like a threat of rain, we're like, no, please no. Hi everyone, welcome back to On the Chicane. You're here with myself, Mariam, and my co-host Paris, and we are about to talk about the Russian Grand Prix, which was bloody insane. Like, such a good race. Would you say it's been one of the best races this season?
Definitely. It's definitely up there.
Because like we've had so many good races that
We
have
have.
strategy and whatnot. So
No, but I think it's definitely one of the better races of the season so far. Like Baku was obviously a really good one. Um, there's been quite a few good ones, but I mean, mind blown, amazing race. I wish every single race was like this, honestly. For me, this is my kind of race. You've had a really good strategy. You've got some really good battles happening at the front, the back, the midfield, everything. You had a bit of rain. There wasn't any major crashes, so you got to actually see some racing. So for me, this was like definitely this kind of race, this format. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And then obviously we had Hamilton getting his 100th win. Yes. I feel like making a bit of noise for him.
yeah,
Go on, Hammy boy. So for me, brilliant race. Loved it.
yeah. Um, I thought it was really good. It was the kind of race that literally has you on the edge of the seat for the entire race. And I was
Yeah,
sweating and I was stressed. But yeah, it was good. I think so anyway.
definitely. Overall, I thought, what did you think of the whole weekend?
Surprising. Um, just because everyone says that Sochi's really boring and it's got a bit of a negative what's the word? Like people don't really they're not
They
really
don't
that
rate it.
excited
They
about
don't rate it.
they're not really that excited about coming to Russia and everyone's like, oh, here we go, Russia, it's going to be another non-race or whatever. But you know, today was very unpredictable. The weather literally threw a massive curveball. Um, yeah, I think there was just a lot of unexpected things that popped up, which made it a really exciting race. And the weekend itself, like obviously, yesterday FP3 was cancelled because it literally looked like it was going to just be raining all day. And then by the time it got to quali, there was sunshine and they managed to actually have a full quali session. I don't think there were any red flags or anything. Oh, no, there was one red flag. Um, but yeah, so it was pretty standard for quali up until obviously the last 5 minutes or so. And then yeah, the race today again so unpredictable, and those last few laps with the rain, good God, so just all over the bloody place.
Literally. I mean, yesterday, when I saw like the rain, I was thinking like I hope we're gonna have quali because they were saying, okay, maybe we'll push it to Sunday. And then that was obviously thinking, how is this gonna affect the grid and stuff like that. And we still ended up with a bit of a mixed up grid, didn't we? Because
Yeah,
when we started today, we had Norris in pole position, Sainz, and then Russell, which was just like, oh my god. So if we go back a little bit, Verstappen, we knew he was going to be starting from the back of the grid, or well, sorry, we knew that he was going to be taking a three-place grid penalty because of the contact that he made with Hamilton in Monza last race. So he decided, or Red Bull decided, not to just give him the three-place grid penalty, but to also take this opportunity to change his PU, starting from the back of the grid, and hopefully with a better engine, he can make his way up the grid. So he was starting at the back. So that kind of left pretty much an open race for like Hamilton and Bottas and Mercedes, right? Like that's what you would think. But then for some reason they missed out in quali yesterday, and Hamilton didn't get pole, which honestly was kind of expected, or at the very least it was expected that Bottas would get pole and Hamilton would get second position.
Yeah. I mean, considering the fact that this is such a well-known Mercedes dominant track, like everyone was expecting something quite, I don't know, spectacular from the Mercedes, because they've always won here. They've, like, including today, they have won what, 8 races now? We've been at Russia since 2014, so
yeah,
they've won at every single race. And for then quali, for them to not even be in the top 3, it was weird. And it was kind of
definitely.
like, are you just throwing this away? Like, what's happening? How have you messed up this badly?
Yeah.
And Hamilton even admitted that he was like making some really stupid mistakes. And he has been recently, to be fair. Like, Hamilton has been kind of screwing.
Can I cover my face and like just you talk about this, and I don't really want to like
I
talk
know,
about
because
this.
it makes you cringe, because I'm cringing as well.
Oh,
Like, I
I
don't
feel
like
so
it.
bad to like have to criticize him in any way, but fairness is fairness. And like he has been making a couple of silly little mistakes here and there. Like yesterday, it was the kind of crashing into the wall a little bit. He also took out one of the pit boys as well. Um,
Front Jackman, yeah.
Front jackman, brake magic. He said he still had it on. So there's a couple of little things that he's been doing recently that do you know what, with Hamilton, he's beaten himself up about it more than we could ever beat him up about
Yeah.
it, and he's definitely not the type of person to let those mistakes continue, whatever it is. I don't want to see him lose this championship over silly little mistakes. Today he had a really poor start as well. Not necessarily through a mistake or his own fault. It's just where he was in the pack.
Yeah.
It didn't let him get like a really good start, and he was squeezed a little bit. So in order to protect himself, he's around all of these young drivers who literally don't have a care in the world when it comes to championship points and stuff like that. They're not necessarily in the lead for the championship, so he has to protect himself, and he can't go maybe as hard as he once used to. When he was in their position, he was a young driver. He knows what's at stake. So that combined with some of his mistakes, I feel like he's on the back foot a little bit, but I'm hoping he takes it back and takes charge again.
No, and I agree. I think if, like, we really obviously don't want Hamilton to lose this championship, but if he does, it will be just because of the stupid little mistakes that he's making here and there, and it's not going to be something significant. It's going to be all these little things that are adding up, and that's what's going to cost him. So
Yeah,
really hoping that, like, we've got 2 weeks until Turkey, hoping that he can kind of reset a little bit and come
yeah,
back. And I mean, he had a really good race in Turkey last year. It's where he became the 7th world champion. So hopefully he can kind of work on that a little bit. And
definitely.
yeah,
Because I mean, even if you think back to earlier in this year when he did Baku, like going off, that immediately lost him so many points, right? So he's had quite a few of these instances throughout the year. You could easily chart them and pinpoint them and calculate how many points he's lost because of it. And this year, Max and Red Bull are doing so well, and they're so on top of it. Arguably the better team overall, if you take into account mistakes and how little mistakes they're making. Yesterday they had a couple of bad pit stops, which we'll discuss, but generally they are the stronger overall team. So I feel like, yeah, Mercedes and Hamilton need to bring it. That being said, I feel like Mercedes made some pretty good calls today, and they did some good pitting, so I'm happy for them and I'm proud of them. So
yeah, I would agree
props
with
is
that.
due.
They really pulled it out of the bag today. Yeah, let's just get into the race from the start,
Yeah,
because there was just so much going on. So 53 laps here in Sochi. It's, you've got that really intense turn 3, which is just a constant left-hander. Turn 2 is like the first braking zone as well. And it's also the longest run down from the start finish line to the first braking zone, I think. It's like 800 meters or something. So they've got a pretty good chance to overtake there.
Yeah.
So the race start, you have Lando, and everyone's debating
Loved it. Loved
how
it.
long do you think he can lead the race for? And people are saying things like 2 laps, 3 laps. It was into the first braking zone that Carlos managed to come by and I think he had a really good slipstream from Lando to start with. He was in the right position, and then managed to just come around and overtake,
Yeah.
and then just take the lead and keep the lead for a while. And Russell
Managed to maintain his position as well, which honestly I didn't think he was going to be able to. You had, the Mercedes power unit of Hamilton behind. So in my head, I was like, Mercedes against Mercedes, which one is going to be better? I thought Hamilton was going to be able to steam ahead of him because they've got better, like a better car overall. But Hamilton got caught up in his own traffic. So Russell managed to maintain position, and I was just like, that's pretty amazing for him, to be honest. I thought that was really great. Then you had Ricardo, Alonso, who else was in that little mix? Stroll, I think, was also a little
oh my
behind.
god, he had such a good start. Like, I think he was I think he started 6th or something.
Mm.
And he was up to 4th by like the first few corners, which was incredible to see.
Definitely surprising from Stroll. I think overall, like the last few races, he's not really been up there out of the two Astons.
No, he has. It's Vettel who's been screwing up recently.
Okay. Yeah.
And what's gutting to see is that both the Astons actually had a really good race today.
Yeah.
Hoping for a really good finish, but unfortunately, just those last few laps in the rain just screwed everything up. And
I actually can't wait to get there in this conversation because I feel like the last few laps, as great as the whole race was, those last few laps were just crazy.
Something else.
What else happened in lap one? Yuki hit some bollards and went off, and he ended up like literally last.
Alonso went off as well.
Yeah, so
that's what allowed Stroll to take 4th, I think.
There was some not so great driving on the racetrack, which I must say at that point was dry, so there wasn't really very much reason for them to be like going off other than usual first place stuff. But we made it through the first few laps with all 20 cars intact. None of the cars were tired, nobody went out, nobody crashed, there was no safety cars or anything. So I thought that was quite interesting. And then you had Verstappen, who was like 20th. He immediately kind of got past Mazepin, Schumacher, and then all of a sudden he was like coming up on Bottas, and I was just like,
should we discuss that incident? Should we discuss what happened there? Because honestly, I think everyone was fuming at Bottas, but a lot of people were also like, do you know what? I understand why he's just done what he's just done. Because honestly, it was like Bottas was like, do you know what? I can see you there, Verstappen. Take the position, go for it. Because I don't care, because this team doesn't care about me. So yeah, I think it was a bit of just a fu to his team, because he literally,
in his new language of the Alfa Romeo language,
he just gave that position to Verstappen and literally just allowed him to just overtake him, where realistically, as Hamilton's teammate, he should have been trying to defend, and he
as much as possible.
Yeah.
How many times this season though have we said that Bottas cannot defend? Like, I've never seen him defend anything.
No, neither have I, to be fair.
I don't even know what his defending is like because I've never seen it. I've only ever seen him like battle through and do really well in qualifying. I think that's his strengths. Like sometimes he can come through the pack a little bit. Like for example, last time in Monza, he ended up on the podium from way back where. So, like sometimes he can come through the pack when he feels like it. And other times like he's really good in qualifying. But defending, wheel to wheel battling, I don't think those are his strengths personally.
No, definitely not. I would agree with that.
So he just lets Verstappen through. Verstappen's like up into 15th
Yeah.
I was just like, what? No. And then he had a few kind of like the middle markers and stuff to get through. So Verstappen was like slowly picking all of them off. Gasly, Ocon, trying to think who else was in the middle around the same time. But there were a few people for him to get through.
And
Raikkonen, yeah.
yeah, lots of them. So yeah, Max then ends up gaining pretty quickly. I'm not gonna sit here and lie and pretend that I can remember all the details because so much happened that it was the kind of race where you were just kind of like struggling to keep up with what was going on. And the TV direction as well for whoever was directing this race on Sky Sports. Honestly, the coverage was awful today. Wasn't impressed. We missed it.
Considering the fact that there were so many good battles going on, there were so many key overtakes, there were so many calls that had a really big impact like later in the race. I feel like we really needed to like kind of cut between a
Yeah.
lot of the things that were happening. Maybe they couldn't even really keep track of the things that were happening.
Yeah, maybe it seemed that way because they were cutting away pretty quickly to other things that were going on.
Mm.
Um, but yeah,
So yeah.
right. We had obviously the battle between Lando and Carlos for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Hamilton also was trying to like get in there. He couldn't, it took him like the longest time to try and overtake Ricardo, which was,
Yeah.
I mean, surprising but not surprising because obviously McLaren's pace has been top notch recently. And
Mm.
obviously they're also with a Mercedes engine, so it's like Hamilton basically fighting against a car that's quite similar to his own.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was stuck behind Ricardo for a very long time. Uh,
I don't even think he overtook him in the end. I think he only got ahead of him because Ricardo pitted, had a slightly long pit, not too long, but slightly long pit. And then eventually Hamilton pitted and ended up coming out ahead of Ricardo and Verstappen.
yeah,
So that he kind of he undercut him and jumped him in the pits rather than actually overtaking him on track. Because yeah, good on Ricardo. He literally, I don't know if he had to do too much, and I also feel like there was an element of tire saving from Hamilton, where Hamilton's
yeah,
thinking, if I expend all of my tires overtaking Ricardo, what's going to happen later on in the race? Am I going to have to pit earlier, and then that will give advantage maybe to Verstappen or someone later down the line. So I think there was an element of maybe he wasn't trying particularly hard to overtake Ricardo, and also they both had Mercedes engines. The McLarens have been doing really well, so yeah, Ricardo was up there for a while, holding him off. Um, and then in the meantime, like you had, I think stuff was happening in the midfield. So Ocon and Raikkonen pitted, which allowed like Leclerc and Verstappen up even higher into the midfield cars. And a lot of cars were kind of moving up, but then the top cars hadn't pitted.
yeah,
So there was like two things kind of happening simultaneously on the track where the top cars were having battles. Like you said, Sainz and Norris were like Norris was trying to overtake Sainz, Hamilton was trying to overtake Ricardo, and then you had the lower down in the race, the midfield cars were starting to pit and they were starting to change onto the hard tires for like a longer stint, or onto the soft tires or medium tires, sorry, if they'd been on the hard tires. So a lot of stuff was happening in the middle of the race, and honestly, it was super interesting to see because genuinely seeing all the cars outside of their intended positions, shall we say, like the positions that you would normally expect them to be in, it meant that when the pits and stuff were happening, it was quite interesting to see where they fed out and where they came out into the race and who then they were battling.
yeah,
I thought that was quite interesting.
yeah. I would agree with that. So yeah, pit stops. Let's discuss those very quickly. I don't think anyone really had a very smooth pit stop today. Mercedes did have what, one or two. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
some of the pit stops we didn't even see, but
Yeah,
for the most part, I think most teams had at least one
terrible pit stop.
stop
Yeah.
because obviously of these new pit stop rules and whatever, and it's just people just clearly aren't getting the hang of it. Um, so yeah, there was a lot of time lost in the pit lane today, which obviously I think just added to the drama and
Definitely.
losing out.
Specifically, I think Perez, that kind of really hurt his race a little bit.
Yeah.
So Red Bull had a really slow stop with Perez. It was like 5 seconds. I think Verstappen even had a slightly slow stop. I think his was about four
In comparison
seconds.
to Hamilton, I think they pit at the same time, didn't they? And Hamilton
Yeah.
was like that, and Verstappen's was like sleeping.
It was kind of frustrating though, because usually they have the pit time at the bottom.
Yeah, they did
They
today.
didn't have it.
Yeah,
I think maybe on some of the later pits, but on the early pits, there must have been like a technical issue or something like that because they didn't have it. And I love to see that little time ticking down, especially when you've got two simultaneous pit stops. Like I love seeing it. And then it was quite interesting. Just how Red Bull are being affected by this new rule that's been introduced midway through, which was that basically the button that allows the light to go green to release the car is now manually operated. So it's like a bit of human error going into it. And yeah, they, like you said, clearly haven't got the hang of that. And it's causing issues in the race.
yep. So maybe they just need to do many more pit stop practices or something because yeah, teams are struggling with that at the moment.
Yeah. So yeah, pit stops happened. Schumacher ended up going out with a couple of issues.
You don't need DNF.
Yeah.
So
Latifi also DNF'd, but I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why though. The only reason I even noticed it is it was at the bottom. Literally, they didn't mention that. They didn't even cover it.
gutted for Latifi then.
Yeah. And then so we're getting on like further in the race. You've got Norris and Hamilton back at the front, Brit on Brit. Some really good action going on. Every second, Hamilton is getting closer and closer because obviously he's come out of the pits and he's like ahead of Ricardo. He's ahead of Ricardo. He's ahead of Verstappen. Perez is now first because he hasn't pitted. Um, so he's like in front position but has to pit soon. So essentially I think Hamilton and Norris were like fourth and fifth, but really they weren't fourth and fifth, they were in like position for first and second. So them two are battling and I loved that battle and I wish that we didn't get rain so we could have just like seen them actually. I reckon Hamilton would have overtaken him. He was getting so much closer.
So close, and like with DRS and stuff, he would have been
Yeah,
in it.
definitely.
Yeah, the rain really did just screw everything up because I was literally everyone's been complaining. No, everyone always says, "Oh, we want this to be a wet race. We want rain." Blah blah blah. I think since Spa,
What
everyone
happened?
like no rain.
Trauma.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone is traumatized from the rain in Spa, and now every time there's like a threat of rain, we're like, "No, please no." And even today, I was like, "This would be interesting." But I don't want to see it happen because there's only 5 laps left and like Hamilton's so close. Like, please.
Yeah. And then what I was thinking was that, like, what if a safety car happens now because someone else has crashed like further down the track, and then Norris like obviously has to back up into Hamilton, and then it doesn't like he's saved in a sense, like because unless Hamilton can overtake him after the safety car's released. So that's what I thought was gonna happen. I was like, shit, 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 shit. But what happened instead was half the grid decided to go into the pits onto intermediates. Hamilton actually stayed out for 1 lap. So that was intense. There was like that moment where he was like told to box and then he like didn't box. So then everyone was like, were Mercedes just like tricking them or what was
Yeah,
happening?
was it a bluff?
Yeah, was it a
Yeah,
bluff?
basically it was like so Norris had to make he kind of made his own decision.
Mm,
The his team were obviously telling him what the situation was with the weather and stuff, but Norris decided to keep fighting and to stick it out. And Hamilton, I think, was just kind of following Lando's lead a little bit.
mm.
And they were both kind of stuck to their whatever tires they were on, can't remember. And you could see they were just slipping. Lando went wide quite a few times.
He went wide quite a few times. And then you saw the back of Hamilton's car as well
Yeah.
doing a little shake.
So yeah, and then like Lando was like, I'm committing to these tires, I'm staying out. And Hamilton's team were telling him, do you know what, it's actually going to get worse. So
Yeah.
I'm in for intermediates. And he did. And
First good call from Mercedes all year. I was like, yes,
yeah,
yes,
so good.
Mercedes.
Yeah, so yeah, he came in for the tires, and then it was Lando who ended up. Oh, I actually felt really bad for him.
I felt super bad for him. He'd done so well up until that point.
Um, yeah, I know it was a shame. So he ended up basically it was like what the last lap or the last two laps. He ended
Yeah,
up
it's kind of
going
like one
wide,
and a half.
like really wide, and just I don't know if he actually I don't think he went into the barriers, but he went out, lost so many grid positions,
Mm,
and it just gave Hamilton a really easy ride to
yeah.
the end. And somehow, don't know how.
I honestly, I was so focused on Lando and Lewis that I did not see Verstappen creeping up through the bloody positions. And I look and I actually you okay, so you tweeted it at the same time that I said it out loud. I was like, the Verstappen,
Yeah,
like how is he third? Because he got into third. And literally, like as I said it, Mariam tweeted it, and I literally wanted to like it from the on the chicane count. So I was like, hold on a second, this is what I wanted to say. I was just like, what the hell? Like, how did this guy? Because in my head, the last time I saw Verstappen, Perez was still in front of him. Like all of these people were still
yeah,
in front of him because literally Perez had pitted way long after him. So Perez came out and was on much fresher tires and was ahead of him. So all of these people were ahead of him, but then obviously like they all pitted to change to the
yeah.
intermediates. And I don't know what happened while they were pitting. This is why I need to go and watch it again because I absolutely just loved the chaos that was this race. But yeah, he managed to all of a sudden just kind of like get up there. And I was just like, oh, heavens.
I don't know how it happened either, to be honest. And I'm really annoyed that it did
Oh my
happen
God.
because this would have been so good if
Yeah.
it had finished quite far ahead. Because obviously we're fighting for crucial points at the moment, and it's literally
Mm,
each race they keep overtaking each other. Like last week, Verstappen was ahead. Now Hamilton's ahead in the championship. So
yeah.
each race is so important.
It's so close, like two
Oh,
points in it.
yeah, it was too much. And then Science came third. Like
Yeah. It
I
was a
don't know,
point,
it was good. It was a good race, a brilliant
definitely.
race actually.
I
But
loved it. I absolutely loved it. More races like this for me, please. Thank you.
yeah, gutted for Norris. He ended up finishing seventh actually, which was a shame because he actually drove a pretty impeccable race the entire way.
Yeah. I
Um,
feel like he would have finished second on merit. Like had there not been any rain, like he hadn't have had the wet track or anything, Hamilton probably would have overtaken him in the last few laps, fine.
yeah,
But he would have definitely finished second. And his first race win is coming very, very soon. I reckon before the end of this year.
it'll be interesting to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the final top 10 were Hamilton, Verstappen, Sainz, Ricciardo finished fourth,
Hmm.
and then Bottas finished fifth, which, not too bad, especially for the Mercedes Constructors' Championship.
Yeah.
And then Alonso sixth, Norris seventh, Raikkonen eighth, Perez ninth, and then Russell.
Hmm. Yeah. So
So
I don't know how Perez dropped back to ninth, especially like even behind Kimi. That's just
yeah,
honestly crazy. And I really need to go and find out what happened there. Apologies for not knowing. Um, but what a race. What an amazing race.
it was good. I really enjoyed it, and I'm just excited to see now what Turkey brings.
Yeah.
Um, but on that note, what or who, sorry, were your winners and losers of the day?
I think for me, my winner of the day has to just be Hamilton, 100th race win, like blowing out all of the kind of anybody who's come before him, amazing championship points. He's taken back the lead in the championship. He did it on merit, not because anybody else fluked up or anything like that. Like he drove really well, considering the few mistakes that he did make yesterday. He really kind of like put himself back up in there and made sure that he was competing with Norris. Compare that, for example, with Bottas, who, what the hell was he doing? So definitely Hamilton for me as my winner of the day. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to say Hamilton as well, simply for the same reason. Like 100 race wins, no driver has ever done that before.
Mm-hmm.
A pretty amazing record, and he, yeah, I'm proud of him.
Good stuff. For me, loser of the day, I think I'm gonna have to go with Yuki.
Okay, why?
I think he's such an amazing little character. His enthusiasm is great, but my man, you need to drive now. Come on. You're in a Formula One car. He's driving an AlphaTauri. We know the levels that AlphaTauri can bring. Look how like Gasly was up there, and there was just like points where I did see Yuki kind of like driving a little bit, and he's just so unsure of himself now. He needs to kind of be a bit more confident. And for me, everybody else had pretty good races today. I feel like nobody really messed up too badly. So I think when you then start looking at drivers and how they drive and where they should be versus where they are, I think Yuki's just really far back down the grid. What about you?
I've got two, and
Mm-hmm.
they're teammates, Lance Stroll and Sebastian Vettel. Just because,
Yeah,
like, honestly, I love the boys so much, but we had it was looking so positive. Like Lance starting in the points, Vettel, I think main like was in the points for the majority of the race. They're both racing in the points, and then for them to both finish just outside of the points, gut.
because of the and as well the reason why they finished just outside of the points.
Yeah, like I'm really upset. But I'm just gonna try not to think about it because honestly, I
Yeah.
was like, this is looking so good. I was so happy, and Stroll was doing so well, and then it just all literally went from like such a good high to
I don't know if Stroll squeezed Vettel because of the rain, because it didn't look like it. It looked like he was in control of the car and he moved over too fast
I don't
and that caused him
know
to
what's going on.
squeeze.
They need to stop with the
Yeah, contact. They have had contact a few times, right?
yeah, it's so annoying. So
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. But anyway, we have now got Turkey in 2 weeks' time. Uh looking forward to it. We went back to Istanbul last year, obviously because of COVID, and they've decided to bring it back this year again as a replacement for it was initially the replacement for the Canadian Grand Prix. Then the Canadian Grand Prix thing was cancelled, and then the Turkish Grand Prix was cancelled because of COVID restrictions, and then the Singapore Grand Prix was cancelled, and then they brought in Turkey again to replace the Singapore Grand Prix. So in 2 weeks' time, it should have been the Singapore Grand Prix, but it's now going to be the Turkish Grand Prix, basically.
Well done for remembering that, because honestly, I just see it change on my phone and I'm just like, okay, cool. So it's the Turkish Grand Prix next week. Cool. Okay, okay. But the fact that you remembered which one was where, that's pretty good. Yeah, like we've got some interesting stuff happening. Hopefully there'll be no grid penalties next time out. And Mercedes and Red Bull can just like both be at the front and show what they're both made of. Bearing in mind though that Lewis only has two working PUs at the moment, and there is a good chance that in the next few races he is going to have to take a grid penalty. So I'm hoping it is not at Turkey, but at the same time, if they are going to take it, they should probably take it sooner rather than later. I personally think maybe Lewis should have been the one to take the grid penalty today instead of Valtteri, because I feel like he would have been able to battle through harder. But anyway, whatever the call they made, clearly it worked, and Lewis was in the right position when he needed to be. Um, Other than that, yeah, Turkey, we await the Turkish Grand Prix. In the meantime, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit the notification bell so you get notifications when we get new videos. And please follow us all on social media at On The Chicane on Twitter and Instagram. And we have onthechicane.com for some amazing interviews and race chat. So
Needs to be updated.
soon to be updated.
Yeah.
But yeah, get in there.
Yeah. Catch you next time, guys.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.